You're about to hear a story that flips everything you know about power, respect, and deception on its head. In a world where appearances are everything, one CEO decided to disappear into the shadows, taking on the most unexpected role imaginable: a janitor. What happened next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about those around you, and who's truly in control. Day after day, Marcus Mitchell watched his company from behind closed doors, hearing the whispers, seeing the looks, and feeling the subtle sting of disrespect from those who thought they were untouchable. But no one had any idea that Marcus was watching them, and when he decided to see for himself what his employees were truly like, without the mask of power, everything changed. What would you do if you found out your boss had been secretly observing your every move? Would you feel guilty, or would it change the way you see your colleagues? Think about it, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Marcus Mitchell had built an empire from nothing. From humble beginnings to one of the most successful CEOs in the industry, his name carried weight, his words were commands, and his presence was felt in every room. But today, Marcus stood in the lobby of his own corporate headquarters, dressed as something entirely different. The powerful CEO had transformed into something unrecognizable: a janitor. With a mop in hand, he quietly blended into the background, unnoticed by the very people who owed their livelihoods to the company he had created. As he stood there, watching employees bustle through the lobby, he was about to witness something that would change the course of his entire business and his life forever. The first light of day bathed the lobby in a sterile glow. The glass doors slid open, one by one, as employees filed in, their faces preoccupied with their own thoughts, their own worlds. They walked past Marcus, some with barely a glance, others offering nothing more than a nod or a brief smile. No one knew who he really was. The tall, suited men and women hustled by, their eyes locked forward, oblivious to the quiet figure sweeping the floor. Have you ever witnessed bullying in the workplace? It could be subtle, or it could be blatant. But how did it make you feel? Did you speak up, or did you stay silent? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. But something was wrong. As Marcus watched, he couldn't help but notice the way some people looked past the janitors, their eyes cold, indifferent. A quick scowl here, a dismissive gesture there. The lobby was filled with the noise of busy people, but there was an unsettling undertone to the atmosphere. It was like a secret, one that Marcus had long suspected, but never fully understood. His heart sank as he saw the disdain in their eyes, the silent judgment that was reserved only for those they deemed beneath them. As the morning wore on, Marcus remained in his role, quietly mopping the floors, his eyes scanning every corner, every action, as the staff came and went. Then the office manager, Mr. Davis, appeared. Tall, with a permanent scowl etched into his face, Davis exuded arrogance from every step he took. He was one of the higher-ups, and it was clear he had no interest in being polite to anyone he considered beneath him, especially Marcus. Without missing a beat, Davis approached Marcus with a smirk, eyeing the floor and sneering, "Hey, janitor, you missed a spot." He pointed to an area where there wasn't so much as a speck of dust. Marcus didn't respond. Instead, he continued his work, moving the mop in slow, deliberate strokes. But that didn't stop Davis. With a flick of his wrist, he knocked over a cup of coffee onto the floor, right where Marcus was working. The hot liquid splashed onto the floor, staining the pristine surface. Davis stepped back, watching Marcus silently clean up the mess, his smug face twisting into a grin. "Oops, guess I made a little mess." Davis chuckled to no one in particular, making sure to stand close enough so Marcus could smell the superiority dripping from his words. But it didn't stop there. Throughout the day, every time Marcus turned around, there was Davis, lurking in the background, ready to make another snide comment, another insult. He'd mockingly remind Marcus that his job was to clean up after others, and that he should do it right. The insults weren't just about cleaning, they were about power. the power to humiliate. As the hours passed, Marcus continued to observe, silently enduring the snide remarks and belittling behavior that had become the norm. But then, something happened that shook him to his core. Something that went beyond a simple insult. It happened when Henry, an elderly janitor who had been with the company for years, struggled to push a heavy cart of cleaning supplies down the hall. His hands trembled slightly, age clearly weighing on him as he tried to maneuver the cart. He had been at this job for longer than most employees had been alive, yet the respect he deserved was nowhere to be found. Mr. Davis appeared once more, but this time his mockery was more vicious. With a sharp laugh, he walked toward Henry, his eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. "Need some help, old man?" Davis sneered as he leaned in closer, his voice dripping with false concern. "Maybe it's time to think about retirement, huh? You're slowing down." Davis's words hung in the air like a sickening weight. The humiliation on Henry's face was unmistakable. His eyes lowered in shame. His body stiffened. But he continued pushing the cart without a word, accepting the indignity quietly. Marcus's blood began to boil as he watched this exchange. He could see the lines of exhaustion etched on Henry's face. He could hear the pain in the man's silence, the unwillingness to stand up for himself in fear of the consequences. But the worst part was that no one stepped in to help. No one even acknowledged Henry's struggle. Davis walked away, clearly pleased with his victory. The younger employees around him snickered, exchanging knowing glances, as if this kind of behavior had somehow become normal. But it was at that moment that Marcus knew. This was the breaking point. It wasn't just about a disrespectful manager anymore. This was about a toxic culture that had gone unchecked for far too long. Marcus felt his anger rising, the weight of his observations crashing down on him. He had been quiet for too long. He had been watching and waiting for the right moment, but now his resolve was clear. He had to act. The day had worn on and Marcus had seen enough. What began as simple curiosity had evolved into something deeper. His observations had revealed the truth about his company, something far more troubling than he had ever imagined. The toxic culture wasn't just something he'd heard whispers about in the hallways. It was real, and it was embedded in the very DNA of the company. From the top down, a deep-seated disrespect for anyone perceived as lower on the totem pole had taken root. It wasn't just about mocking the janitors. It was about the way employees treated each other, how power was used to demean, and how kindness had no place in the workplace. That was the moment Marcus knew something had to change, and it was going to start with him. No longer would he stand by and allow this culture to thrive. It was time to take action. His heart was set. He had spent the day in silence, observing, collecting evidence, but now the silence would end. Marcus stood up, his body rigid with determination. He walked quietly through the hallways, his every step purposeful, though no one noticed. The janitor's uniform was still in place, hiding his true identity. But as he approached the conference room, something in the air shifted. He felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. This was it. He had seen enough, and now he was about to make his presence known in a way no one would ever forget. As the employees filled the room, chatting among themselves, they had no idea that today would be different. They were just going through the motions, unaware that their actions had been under scrutiny all day. No one knew that the quiet janitor in the hallway was their CEO. The door to the conference room swung open, and Marcus stepped inside. His appearance, still dressed in the janitor's uniform, was met with blank stares. The room fell silent, the casual chatter fading into nothing as Marcus stood before them, his gaze steady, his presence commanding. It was clear. The moment had come. But before anyone could speak, Marcus raised his hand, stopping them in their tracks. He wasn't here to make small talk. He wasn't here to play games. The decision had been made. The culture of disrespect was about to be confronted, and the consequences would be far-reaching. As the clock struck 5, The room fell silent. The employees stood in their usual spots, waiting for the meeting to begin, unaware of the bombshell that was about to drop. Marcus stood before them, still dressed in his janitor's uniform, his face calm, but his eyes betraying the gravity of the moment. He surveyed the room, noting the casual way people shifted in their seats, the relaxed smiles that lingered on faces. No one could know that the man they had ignored, mocked, and belittled all day long was about to reveal himself as the very person they worked for. As he spoke, his voice was steady, yet the weight of his words cut through the silence like a knife. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice clear and unyielding, "my name is Marcus Mitchell, and I am the CEO of this company." A wave of disbelief swept through the room. Eyes widened, mouths dropped open. For the first time, they truly saw him. And in that moment, everything changed. "For the last 24 hours, I have watched you. I've seen how you treat each other, how you treat the people you deem beneath you, the janitors, the people who clean your messes, who maintain the building you work in. I've watched the way you mocked them, belittled them, and treated them as if they were invisible. I have witnessed the disrespect you show not just to your colleagues, but to the very heart of this company, the people who keep it running. I am deeply disappointed in what I've seen today. The culture here is toxic, and it's built on arrogance, cruelty, and an utter lack of empathy. I've seen managers who should be setting an example, instead using their power to humiliate and degrade. And I've seen employees who think it's okay to join in on that cruelty. This is not the company I built, and this is not the company I will allow to continue." There was a pause, an unbearable silence. The room was filled with stunned faces, each person trying to process what they had just heard. Marcus stood tall, letting his words sink in. Some employees looked around, avoiding eye contact, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The weight of the moment was too heavy for anyone to speak, too heavy to ignore. As the silence in the room stretched on, Marcus didn't wait for anyone to respond. He had made his point, and now it was time to enforce the consequences. "Mr. Davis," Marcus said, his tone calm but firm, "you are immediately suspended from your duties, pending a full review of your conduct. The way you've treated others in this company is unacceptable, and it will not be tolerated." Davis's face flushed, his mouth opening and closing in disbelief, but no words came out. His arrogant, untouchable persona had just crumbled in front of everyone. But Davis wasn't the only one who would face repercussions. Marcus turned his gaze to the others in the room, the employees who had joined in on the bullying, the ones who thought it was harmless fun. "Anyone who has participated in this toxic behavior will undergo mandatory sensitivity training. We will address this issue head-on, and we will change the culture within this company." His voice rang with authority, a clear message that the old ways were over. Marcus's words weren't just empty threats, they were a promise. "No one, no matter their position in this company, will be treated with disrespect," he declared, his eyes locking onto each person in the room. "This company will be built on respect, fairness, and accountability. And if you cannot adhere to that, you will no longer have a place here." The message was clear. The culture of superiority, arrogance, and cruelty was over, and anyone who couldn't embrace this new vision would be shown the door. With the consequences set in motion, Marcus took a deep breath, the weight of the moment not lost on him. Slowly, he reached up and removed the janitor's jumpsuit he had been wearing all day. The fabric fell to the floor with a soft rustle, revealing the sharp suit he had been hiding underneath. The room went silent again, this time in awe and disbelief. Marcus stood tall, his suit symbolizing not just his role as CEO but his commitment to a new beginning. He didn't need to say a word. His actions spoke louder than any speech ever could. Without another glance, Marcus walked out of the room, his every step filled with purpose. The company and everything it stood for would never be the same again. As the dust settled and the new culture began to take root, one thing became crystal clear. Marcus Mitchell had shown us all a powerful truth. True power isn't about titles or status. It's not about the corner office or the salary on your paycheck. No, true power lies in how you treat others. Marcus didn't need to wield his authority to prove his worth. Instead, he showed that the strength of a leader is measured by their ability to act with integrity, empathy, and respect. By stepping into the shoes of those he had once overlooked, Marcus Mitchell had changed his company. And in doing so, he had delivered a valuable lesson not just to his employees, but to all of us. Leadership is about people, and respect is the foundation of a thriving workplace. What do you think this story teaches us about leadership and respect? How can we all apply these lessons in our own lives, whether at work or in our personal interactions? Drop your thoughts below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking stories like this. Don't forget to share this story with others, and let's keep the message of respect and accountability going. Together we can change the way we lead and the way we treat each other, because it all starts with us.